And it looks like I've got a hand raised. Oh, I have somebody who answered the question. That's awesome. Okay. Got some hand raises. Great. Thanks, everyone. So now we know you can hear us. Looks like we have a mix today of current customers and those who are looking for just a bit more information about managing devices with Robot Cloud. For those of you who aren't familiar with Robot Cloud, it is a cloud-based solution with full MDM capabilities. The backbone of Robot Cloud is the Casper Management Suite, which is an enterprise MDM solution. All features of the Casper Suite are available in Robot Cloud. In addition to hosting iOS devices in Robot Cloud, we also offer additional MDM services. For example, consultation, support with solutions like Apple's device enrollment program and the volume purchase program. We are also familiar with Apple Configurator. For many customers, we provide full MDM consultation and ongoing support with the iOS devices and the MDM itself. So let's get started. I'd like to introduce Christopher Shay. Christopher is one of our Robot Cloud engineers who will lead us through today's webinar.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Amy, for the introduction. Today, we're going to talk about the concept of supervision and what it means to your organization's mobility strategy. So first off, who out there is currently using a mobile device management solution of any kind in their organization today? A couple hands out there. Okay. Second, quick show of hands also. Who is familiar with what supervision means or supervised mode in iOS? Just a couple out there. Okay, great. So supervision paired with MDM is an ideal solution for managing iOS devices that are company-owned. Supervision, simply put, is what offers organizations a deeper layer of device management. Now, this is either established via Apple Configurator, a Mac-only application, or Apple's device enrollment program. It's truly what can draw the line in the sand between a company-owned device and an employee-owned device. The MDM solution, like Robot Cloud, provides over-the-air management, like application distribution, password policies, email profiles, etc. There are many things we can manage with MDM, but if the devices are under supervision, there are additional management options. Now, these fall into two general categories, secure and disable. In the secure section, you have the ability to disable iMessage. You can completely disable that application so that if you're in a situation where you need to prevent your users from communicating outside with something like a text message or an iMessage, you can remove that from them. Second option there is to limit AirPlay to approved devices so that you can lock out being able to broadcast the screen of the device to an unapproved Apple TV or another AirPlay destination. You can also disable AirDrop, so another security feature preventing files from being transferred from one iOS device to another iOS device, and potentially in the future with Yosemite, the ability to transfer to a Mac computer as well. You can also disable the installation of unauthorized configuration profiles. This allows for your MDM to control what profiles get installed and that users aren't able to try to install their own. You can also secure the device to prevent host pairing so that the user can't connect it to another Mac or PC running iTunes to either back up the data that's stored on it or modify the settings. And another option under the secure category is the control of activation lock. Now, activation lock is pretty important when you're dealing with iOS devices because that allows users to secure them to their own Apple ID, which can cause headaches if the user leaves the organization or turns in the device and they've left activation lock enabled. With supervision, by default, it prevents activation lock from activating. And paired with an MDM solution, you can then control activation lock. You can enable it on supervised devices, and with Robot Cloud and MDM, you're able to capture the activation lock key so that you can unlock the device. Even if the user has enabled activation lock, you're free to be able to unhook it from that. So that's a secure category. In the disable category, there is the preventing of users from removing the applications. So when you set up an MDM specific set of applications for your users, you can prevent them from inadvertently or purposefully removing the applications that you've installed. You can prevent the user from changing Apple ID accounts. So using Supervision, you can establish an Apple ID, a company-owned Apple ID, during the setup of the device, and then once it's enrolled and supervised, you can prevent the user from modifying that Apple ID or other account information on the device. Very useful. You can also disable the iBookstore. So if you want to clean up those icons, or they're just, you don't need this device to be used in that way, you can just turn off the iBookstore. Another option is that you can limit cellular data usage by application. So you can, with a supervised device, instruct it so that an application cannot use cellular data to connect. So if there's some sort of video streaming or anything you want to force your applications to use Wi-Fi, then you can do that with Supervision. At Forget Computers, we encourage our customers to use Supervision as a best practice for any company-owned device deployment, because it gives you that deeper level of full control, as full control as you can get with an iOS device. So now we know how important Supervision is. The next question is, how do you do it? Traditionally, we've used Apple Configurator. Apple Configurator has been around for a while. It's available on the Mac App Store for free. You use a USB cable, and you do this in bulk with a cart or USB hub. Connect the devices into the workstation that's the Apple Configurator host, and then you supervise, which then installs a trust certificate onto the device. It's not the most elegant solution, however, but for a while it was the only way organizations could activate Supervision. Let's see what it looks like here. Now here's a fun fact. Configurator also does have the ability to set specific wallpapers and lock screen images, which you cannot do with MDM. So there's a few features in Apple Configurator that are exclusive to it and it alone. It also does have some of those abilities to manually install profiles, which can assist with enrollment into an MDM. Or if you're just managing, a small group of devices and you don't need over-the-air management, you can do it manually with Apple Configurator. However, we found the best solution with an MDM is to only rely on Apple Configurator for the two key items of establishing Supervision, getting them into that mode, and using them to enroll the device into the Robot Cloud MDM, which then will continue to provide the over-the-air management. Well, that was until now. In February, Apple released its device enrollment program. With this program, Apple offers organizations that have an established account with Apple the ability to apply for the device enrollment program. Once approved, they have the ability then to automatically enroll and activate Supervision over the air. No USB cords. There are some caveats to this program. For instance, the products must be purchased via the Apple retail channel and a few other minor details. This was a real game changer because participation in the program, many times referred to as DEP, coupled with a mobile device management or MDM solution like Robot Cloud, offers organizations the ability now to deploy a managed device right out of the box. No USB cords, no physically handling of the device by IT. You can set these up from the factory at Apple to automatically pair with an MDM solution, and during the Apple setup process by the user, they're basically instructed to connect the device to the MDM, which will then immediately roll out all of your assigned profiles. If you would like more information on how to get access to Apple's device enrollment program, please contact your local Apple business team. If you don't currently have a team you're working with, just let us know and we can connect you with one. So that all covers at a very high level the concept and implications of supervision. At this point, we'll then turn to the Q&A portion of our webinar. Hey, Amy, do we have any questions out there?
Yes, we do, Christopher. This is a little different than mobile device management. Ties into, though, is I've got a couple of people that have questions about Apple IDs. You and I both know how wonderful the world is of Apple IDs. What do you know about best practices and how many devices you can have on one particular Apple ID?
It's a great question. when you're Apple's vision for the Apple ID and what they stick to is the user should have control of the Apple ID, and this is when you're dealing with a customer-owned device. There currently isn't a pathway yet to establish a company-owned Apple ID as of yet. So we've had to kind of make some workarounds. And from what we've encountered, our best practice would be to keep around 10 devices on a company-owned Apple ID, and there are some limitations when creating the Apple IDs from the devices you should be aware of, because you can trigger the creation of an Apple ID from an iOS device, but that can only happen about 5 times before the device will be unable to create any more Apple IDs from that specific device. So we definitely recommend that you do it either through the web, creating an ID at appleid.apple.com, and then limiting it to about 10 devices per, which is what Apple seems to kind of ignore, basically. We've heard of other deployments where people go way above and beyond that, but you're dealing then in a kind of a gray area where Apple can reserve the right to maybe lock down your Apple ID or cause other problems.
Great, thank you. I've got one viewer or listener out there that's using iCloud as their mobile device management solution. I know from our experience that iCloud really wasn't designed to be an MDM solution. It's not a business solution, so to speak. Could you briefly talk to that about how iCloud is different than Robot Cloud?
Sure. I mean, iCloud does give you some of these very, very basic features through the Find My iPhone feature, allowing for remote lock, remote wipe. You can pull location information from that. But beyond that, you're basically locked into, the email account, the calendars. You can't control, passcode. You can't do anything else with security. You can only react to a problem if a phone or an iOS device is lost. You can't sort of set things up on the front end to kind of prevent situations. It's really just a consumer, level kind of product.
Thank you. So what about DEP and VEP? Can you tell me again what those stand for and what they mean?
What's that?
DEP.
And VPP.
Yep. I had a couple of questions and confusions with the acronyms.
Sure. Yeah, they've combined those two programs together into the deployment program. Of course, DEP is the program that connects your customer number. So I do see a question coming in on the chat here that relates to this about being able to add devices to DEP now that it's available, or is it only for new devices? According to Apple, as long as those devices were purchased with the same customer number as your approved DEP program, you can retroactively re-add those devices to DEP via serial number, essentially. And that customer number is basically what's tied to your Apple Terms account, which is a requirement of the DEP program. It basically allows to create that chain of trust between the device and the person wanting to enroll into the MDM solution. So as long as those two things match up and you do have those purchases recorded in that Terms account with Apple, you'd be able to retroactively add those devices into DEP. If the DEP program, though, is approved for a different Terms account, or you don't currently have one, you just have a bunch of devices that you purchased over the counter at the Apple retail store, at this point in time, those wouldn't necessarily be eligible to add. But the VPP program is the volume purchase program, which allows a company to add applications on bulk to their MDM solution, allowing them to roll them out to their users and allow them to rescind those licenses and hang on to them, no longer needing to basically gift applications from the App Store to users. They can assign them a license, and then they can rescind that license, and then the user's able to keep the app for about like a 30-day demo if they choose to continue using the app and purchasing it on their own.
Great. Thank you very much, Christopher. I have a clarification from someone, and this is a great point about the volume purchase program's managed distribution process. The one beautiful thing about the VPP program is that a company, when they're distributing applications, can retain ownership to that particular application. A comment from someone in the audience talks about if a customer does insist on creating their own Apple IDs, they can. You can speak directly with Apple to get a lift off of that. It's called a whitelist request. So if you need to create many more Apple IDs, you can work with Apple to do that. But you can retain ownership to these applications that are distributed with VPP.
Yeah, and with the Apple IDs, of course, there's the first concern usually is app distribution, right? Which VPP can definitely help get around some of that. You still then you don't have to worry about the Apple IDs because then it's just on the user to have one that you can temporarily assign the Apple ID to. I think there's still some challenges out there with, like, if you do want to use Find My iPhone or activation lock as a protection method, or you want to some people want to try to get location information. That's something you still end up trying to deal with company-owned Apple IDs. But right, that VPP definitely helps out companies who want to roll out applications, and you need to have that ID to get those apps installed.
So we have someone in the audience that purchased 150 iPads last year through Apple. Are they able to add them to their device enrollment program once created, or is that only for new devices? I think that's
that's a good question. Yeah, and I touched on that when we talked about the DEP program. For sure, that you can only add those devices to DEP if it's connected to that same approved customer number that you get from Apple when they hook up to your existing account through your approval process. As long as it's they weren't Apple retail purchased over the counter and they were through your account, you can add, and there is a process on the website there to add those devices and get them in the enrollment for DEP.
Just to clarify, your customer number is also what's called an SAP number or a terms account number. And we were trying to avoid going too much into detail with the device enrollment program, as we work very closely with our friends at the Apple business teams all across the United States. And so there's a wonderful website on the DEP out there, and we would encourage you to work with them directly to really understand that process of enrolling and qualifying for the device enrollment program.
Cool. Amy, I see another question about applications, since we brought up the volume purchase plan, which is kind of like an add-on to the DEP, about rescinding applications working on supervised versus any device rolled through MDM. There's no control. Supervision isn't necessary for VPP, and even in general MDM, you can rescind a managed app. So even if it's a free app, and the free app is going to retain data on a customer's device, and they install that app as a managed app through like your self-service portal like we do with Robot Cloud, and you unscope that app from the device, it will delete the managed device if you have configured it when you set up the application to do so. So you're not required with supervision to get control over the application of the device. That's a regular tool of normal MDM and not restricted to supervision.
Thank you, Christopher. I have another question about how much does Robot Cloud cost?
Oh, we're looking at for iOS or for Mac?
For iOS.
I assume it would be iOS, right? Yeah, so we're looking at $5 device per month. Will get you access to the Robot Cloud control panel, which then you can get set up. We do have a nominal training costs. We'll basically work with you to kind of scope out, the plan for your iOS rollout, and have a variety of options in that case. But as far as like ongoing costs, it's $5 device per month.
I would add that there is a minimum associated with that of 20 devices or $100 a month. So I have another question. Is there any benefit to supervising a device in a BYOD environment, or should companies purchase new devices for employees that they want to lock down? That's a great question.
Oh, that is a good question. Supervision is basically not for um, BYOD. And the reason I say that is because you have, when you initially set this up, like if you go through Configurator, I mean, it requires a complete and total device wipe, and that device is now tied to your solution. You can go and do the restore wipe and all of that, but the level of controls that we're talking about here to supervision are things that wouldn't normally be in a BYOD style agreement, where you have the ability to wipe user data off the device. You have other controls, and you basically would prevent the user from them from being able to use like the iBook store and other features that Apple would kind of frown on, that you take away from the user of a user-owned device. I mean, there are some situations like where these specific security requirements in your environment may kind of force you down that path of supervision. But as a general philosophy, Apple sort of is very user first. But I guess it depends on your organization and the policies that you get your users to basically sign off on to use the device in your environment. So I guess that ends up being your call there. But we kind of tend towards letting the users get the most out of their Apple devices and try to silo company data separate from user data. I see another question here about supervision and jailbreaking. There's really nothing there because you can always wipe the device and perform a full restore in recovery mode, even under supervision, because that's at the firmware level. Supervision doesn't go all the way down at the firmware level, so it wouldn't be able to prevent jailbreaking. Of course, obviously, jailbreaking is they're circumventing all of the protections to modify the firmware and the iOS system to get that accomplished. But at least with an MDM, you can detect whether or not the devices have been jailbroken. That's something that you can accomplish at least.
Christopher, I'm going to comment. We have another great comment about iOS, iCloud, and Find My iPhone and the business solution. We don't recommend as a best practice to use Find My iPhone for business usage. There are many MDMs that recommend, and we can as well, a geographical tracking application to distribute through an MDM so that all of the different devices have this particular application loaded onto it. I know there's some geographical applications out there that even have a control panel that can be viewed. It's web-based. We'd like to reiterate, though, that even though that geographical tracking application is distributed through MDM or through Robot Cloud, it really is up to the receiving end, meaning the employee, to open up that application and trigger it. So it's not foolproof. Can it be done? Yes, but you are relying on that employee to open up that application and relying on the signal that they would be in any particular area for it to give accurate geographical tracking information. That was a great comment. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wrap things up. I wanted to mention get one other question, if you don't mind, Christopher. Someone asked if they can try before they buy. Absolutely. We always encourage customers to take Robot Cloud for a spin, so to speak, and try managing a few devices with our solution before committing to any one particular MDM. We work very closely with you during that 2-week process to understand what your MDM goals are, and we will do a webinar with you and supervised devices, not supervised devices, enroll devices in the moment so you can see it in action. Once you decide that you do want to move forward with Robot Cloud, we work with you to develop that plan, and depending on the type of level of support you need, we'll create the configuration profiles for you, work with you to distribute them. We also have the ability to instruct you on how to use Configurator and incorporate that if you choose not to go with the device enrollment program. If you choose to go with the device enrollment program, we will work with you to integrate that solution into Robot Cloud so that the two can work together. If you would like additional support in regards to iOS troubleshooting, that's something else that we can also provide. We have a support desk that's staffed with 10 Mac engineers. About 75% of us were previous Apple employees. We have our support team is staffed from 9 to 6, and we also have additional support hours available. If you're interested in any Robot Cloud for the Mac management services, we offer those as well, in addition to pro support services. Christopher, do you have anything else that you want to add before we wrap this up? And it looks like all of the other questions are completed.
Yeah, there might be some specific ones we can take offline, but I think we're looking good.
All right, great. Well, thank you everyone for your time today. If you have anything else that you'd like to discuss or have clarified, please email me directly at amy@forgetcomputers.com. You can also reach us via our help desk at 312-602-5345. And I also encourage you to regularly check back with our website, forgetcomputers.com, for any future events that we have scheduled. We have another webinar next Wednesday where we're going to be talking about our newest product, the Robot Cloud Starter Kit, that is available currently in beta testing right now. We would love to have you join that, so please register for that one. Also, feel free to follow us on Twitter. We've got 3 Twitter handles: Forget Computers, Robot_Cloud, and Device Scout. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.